please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
I think we've got ethanol 25% up is what we were waiting for. So yes, Cabinet approves increasing ethanol prices up by 25%. Remember, the sugar stocks already have been reacting to that one. And the other important one, of course, is that the Cabinet has approved new procurement policy to ensure MSP to the farmers. We still are awaiting details of that really. But remember, the government had 4 options in front of it. One, of course, was procurement. The other was the state governments, the deficient payment scheme, that is the Bhavantar, and of course also including the private companies to be allowed to procure as well. We have seen it happen earlier when they would do on heist of the Food Corporation of India or other government agencies. But this time around, perhaps the private companies could be allowed to actually start procuring directly from the farmers as well. That, of course, is the other very important one, 25% increase in the ethanol pricing. We should get the sugar stocks on your screens as well, because in any case, the markets were anticipating this for last couple of days. It has been on the agenda as well. We have seen the sugar stocks take an impact of that. And that, of course, those couple of things which the markets were anticipating have gone through. One, of course, the formula for MSP procurement of crops of Kharif. Remember, the Kharif arrivals will start coming in from the last week of September. First week of October is when they actually start hitting the markets quite strong. And while we have seen the MSP price announcement go through, it really has been about the implementation part of it, which of course can be a very real difficulty. Because remember, even as now MSP is declared every year, it's only 25 to 30% of farmers which actually can make use of that. So this time the government actually has been talking and trying that we may be able to go across to all of those farmers this time around. But Abhinash Verma now joins us to talk more about the 25% increase in the ethanol prices. Abhinash, hi, it has been on the expected lines. We have seen stock reaction on that as well. But how ready is the industry really to make use of this price rise?
Manisha, you would know that we have been actually requesting the government to help us in diverting the surplus sugar into ethanol. And for the first time, the government has come with a beautiful policy giving premium for the ethanol that we produce from B-heavy molasses.
Right.
My understanding of today's cabinet approval is, if you remember about couple of months back, the government has already fixed the price of ethanol at 43 or 43.5 for the ethanol that we make from the final molasses.
Right.
Today's approval, I think, is for the ethanol that we make from diversion of sugar.
That's right.
Sugar or sugar cane juice.
Right.
So if that is the increase that we are talking about, I don't know whether it's going to be 25 finally, but if you're saying 25%, I think excellent move. It will certainly attract a lot of people, lot of sugar millers and distillers who have the ability and capacity to divert some sugar. Now, you are aware that sugar prices are down much below the cost of production. And if people are able to divert that loss-making sugar into ethanol, I think a lot of sugar companies will gain. Secondly... But
Abhinash, just one thing. Yeah. Would you say that this is coming quite timely because we are still some time away from the procurement or rather the sugar-making season. So do you think this can be implemented as soon as the next season starts?
Oh, yes, very, very timely. I mean, the OMCs have already floated the tender and we have to submit our bids from the 19th of September, just about 7 days away, for finalization of the contracts for supply of ethanol from 1st December 2018 to 30th November 2019. Very timely. Second, very important, what I wanted to tell you is about 3 years back, we were not expecting to go beyond 3% or 4% blending. This year, we have crossed 5%. And in the next couple of years, when we will develop more capacities, we will cross 10% in the next 2 years also.
What is the number supplies right now, and what are you looking to achieve by the end of the season, really?
This season, which is still on, which is up to the 30th of November 2018, we have contracted for about 164 crore litres, which is just slightly above 5% blending across the country. Next year, with the better pricing and better incentives and more capacity additions in the last about 12 months, which will come on stream in the next season, we expect to cross 225 crore litres or even more. I mean, the tenders will actually give the numbers. I'm just throwing a number. But we should, from 164, 165 crore litres, we should cross 225 or even 250 crore liters next season.
And, the pricing, of course, is in line with what the markets were anticipating. Do you see more investments then coming in on this way?
Yes, I mean, if you remember, we had always submitted before the government that if we are going to divert sugar into ethanol, then obviously we need to be compensated for the loss of revenue that we will lose from sugar. And if our cost of production of sugar is around 35, 36 rupees, then the price of ethanol should be at 52, 53 rupees if we divert B-heavy molasses. If we divert sugarcane juice, it has to be higher. So therefore, our understanding, I read in Times of India that the government was planning to increase it to 52, 53 rupees. If that happens, number one, a lot of diversion of sugar might happen this year. And a lot of investments are already on pipeline. You remember the government has also announced a subsidized loan scheme for next 3 years at 6%. I believe 150 applications have already been submitted to Ministry of Food, which are under examination. So if in the next 2-3 years all these projects come up, then I believe that we might be in a position to even touch 10 to 15% of ethanol blending in the country, which means almost about 500 crore liters in the next 3 years.
All right, Avinash, you've talked absolutely all the right points right now, whether it's about the prices, whether it's about the production of ethanol, and of course the kind of numbers that the industry and the government perhaps would want to see going forward. So clearly big news coming in on the ethanol front, and the sugar stocks clearly reacting to that.
Okay, all right. Thanks so much. Okay, all right. We'll just do a quick check on the markets before we wind down on the show. A couple of stocks really that are selling off in the last few minutes. HDFC, that's the big heavyweight in there. That's taken a leg down, Rima, in the last few minutes. That's down close to around 1%. So pull up HDFC. And Dr. Reddy's as well. Early morning, it was one of the biggest gainers. Now that stock as well has moved into the red. And as we... All right, I think we have Sri Renuka Sugars as well, the management, Atul Chaturvedi, who joins us on the phone line to give us his quick take on the news that's just breaking for you on the screen. Hi, Mr. Chaturvedi. Thanks so much, sir, for joining in. Well, we're just getting details about the ethanol price spike of around 25% odd, and a few more details that are coming in there. Your initial take on this?
I think it is a long overdue decision which the government has taken in absolutely the right time. We are staring at a reasonably big crop, and there's no other alternative but to go the Brazilian way. Because this is not only good economics, it is good politics as well, and this will ensure that the farmers get the right kind of prices, and the industry also starts surviving and ensuring that the farmers get paid. So overall, I think it's a very, very, very welcome decision of the government, and we welcome it with open arms.
Mr. Chaturvedi, clearly the markets have been in the know and are hearing what you say, because we've seen a sudden jump up in all of those sugar stocks there. What is your sense, though, on in signs of the investments? Because we were just talking to Avinash from ISMA, and he says that investments have been in the pipeline, and with this thing going through now, there would be more, it's another impetus really to start investing more on the ethanol side than on the sugar. How do you see that balance or the ratio going forward?
Oh, definitely. The way forward is going to be ethanol, because if you're going to be having a surplus as far as the sugar is concerned, the way forward is ethanol. And ethanol is actually going to be helping the country, because as it is, we are looking at a... Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
We can hear you. With the kind of situation that we're seeing in crude oil prices, definitely.
Yes, and with the Indian rupee also wobbling a bit compared to the dollar, so it makes eminent sense to go the ethanol route. And if you really look at it, we will see a lot of investment getting into this, because as it is, if you really look at the government tender, they want about something like 330 crore worth of ethanol. But last time around, they could only get about 150 crore liters of ethanol. So my take is that this will also ensure that anything between 0.75 to 1 million tons of sugar might also get sucked out of the system. which is good. Which is good for the country.
Well, absolutely.
And good for the sugar industry.
Yes, after a very long time, the sugar industry actually is listening something that it is really enjoying and applauding. But also joining us now on the phone line is Siraj Hussain, who's ex-Agri-Secchi. Mr. Hussain, hi, thank you so much for joining us. We were talking earlier about this, and the cabinet has now approved of a procurement scheme. We yet are awaiting the details on what the contours of that are. But with the procurement, the cabinet really finalizing a procurement scheme right now, how much time would the government really have for it to be implemented? How do you think the state governments would come on board for this? Because what we have been talking earlier really has been that this would take some time. And would you say that 3 weeks is really enough as the Kharif arrivals start coming in for the procurement policy to be implemented?
See, the first thing the agencies engaged in procurement would like from the government is to have a written assurance that the losses they incur will be fully reimbursed.
Right.
Now, unless that is done, the agencies are not going to undertake the procurement. Because we have seen there have been several schemes, in the Ministry of Agriculture, under which the states had to share the losses with the center.
Right.
Now, the states are very reluctant to share the losses because it is known that the market prices are lower than the MSP. So this reassurance is needed, and after that, the procurement infrastructure has to be put in place, manpower, storage, working capital. So if all that is made available, at least in some states, it will be possible to procure various commodities at MSP even in this Kharif season. In some states, better manage the states, it will be possible.
Absolutely. Mr. Hussain, there are 23 crops for which the MSP has been announced. And what we see right now, of course, is that the government procures just about grains, which is wheat and rice, and pulses, which they started a couple of years back. The Cotton Corporation of India procures cotton. We will look at the Bhavantar scheme for oilseeds. The rest, 17 or 18 commodities, how do you see that getting sorted?
No, it is unrealistic to expect that all the commodities will be procured. So I don't think even government, wants that, because that will mean very high losses.
Mr. Hussain, of course, MSP announcement has been one part of it. Implementation would be another. And as, the other marketing and reforms, and as you said, the reimbursement reforms would be something that the government will have to look at. I mean, as I said, we still are waiting for those details. But how would you see all of that happening? What states do you see already in line to be able to implement this immediately?
Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana, of course, are already doing it. They are in a better position, but Bihar does not have any mandi system. Bengal is very poor infrastructure. Northeast, it is non-existent. So it is going to be patchy, but that is not the point. The point is if we can do some major crops like oilseeds, pulses, then we will be able to help most of the farmers. Very nice.
Mr. Hussain, also there is perhaps a change. One of the things really is about allowing the private companies to now procure as well. This, of course, would be a first. In the past, we've seen government come down quite heavily on the private procurement in the name of stocking or hoarding, and there have been various government measures that have been taken against them. So if the private companies were in fact allowed to procure from the farmers directly, what do you think would be a reform that would be needed to push to ensure that it happens in a smooth way?
See, it is very difficult for any government to procure everything, and with markets being fragmented and there several restrictions, fear of imposition of restrictions on movement, on export, on trading, on stocking, the private trade is going to be very reluctant. And we have seen in the past that National Bulk Handling Corporation and NCML, a subsidiary of NCDX, which were assigned the job of procurement of paddy and wheat, took years to get the reimbursement of their losses done by the government. So it is not easy, but it is a good beginning. So let us welcome the government decision. I have not seen the decision. So let us see what is in store.
Well, absolutely. Mr. Chaturvedi, just getting you in the conversation back as well. I mean, as a company, how do you see the MSP procurement part really? And when it comes to the private companies being allowed to procure, how viable as a proposition does that sound to you?
Difficult to comment on this as of now because we really don't have the full facts as of now. But my only take in that is, out of the 23 commodities which are covered under MSP, it is absolutely not viable to keep procuring everything under the sun.
Right.
So government should actually go ahead and do a little bit of a reality check and prune this 23 numbers down to something which is much more realistic and something which is much more manageable. And the other thing which I want to say is procuring everything under the sun is not the solution. This way you are actually elbowing out the private sector. What should actually be done is let the markets behave the way they want to and the way they should. Just ensure that the farmer gets paid the price differential, or as the Madhya Pradesh government calls it as the bhavantar payment or whatever. So this way you don't starve the private sector of the commodity. Otherwise, the government will end up procuring everything under the sun and straining their storage resources as well. And I'm sure you would agree that government is probably, apart from FCI and all, they're not the best people to store material.
Oh,
as some of the experiences in Gujarat would probably tell.
Absolutely.
As far as the government is concerned, yeah.
Absolutely. But, getting Mr. Hussain back in the conversation, there are, what the understanding is also that there could be some implementation or some procurement mechanism which could be done on a pilot phase as well. So perhaps not all commodities, not all states would be put in the line at the same time. Would you say at best that this Kharif season is going to be a trial and error? Because as I said, there is very limited time before we start seeing the arrivals come into the market, and today has been an announcement. We yet to work the other things, other details on. How would you look at this Kharif season go then?
In this Kharif season, I do not see very large-scale procurement. Unless the government of India announces that it is going to provide 50,000 crores as reimbursement of losses. And, it is possible. I'm not saying that it is impossible. It is possible for the state agencies to procure several commodities. I do not say all 23 commodities, but at least major pulses, major oilseeds can be procured. However, the main question is financial. Who is going to bear the losses?
Oh, well, absolutely. A lot of questions as far as the procurement scheme is concerned. We're still awaiting the details onto that one. Mr. Hussain, Mr. Chaturvedi, thank you so much for joining us with your sense on those details. One thing, of course, is very clear, and that is about the ethanol prices being hiked by 25%. That is a lot of clarity. That is something that the markets and the industry were waiting for, and we have seen the stocks react onto that one as well. Apart from that, the procurement is something that we still are waiting on details with. As of now, the market says that there is plenty to be done. A lot of reforms may have to be done. It perhaps would be a lot of trial and error that we would see in this season, and then take it up from there is what the government really will have to do.